So hello everyone. Welcome to today's Water Cooler Chat, where we talk about all things Livepeer, whether it's delegating, broadcasting, transcoding, developing, or anything to do on the Livepeer network. We're here to ask questions and get answers. So we got a couple topics ahead of us, including this Get Orchestrator request update that Brad has done, and also the Livepeer Innovators DAO, which I can jump into right away just to get us started. So. Just a quick update on the Livepeer Innovators DAO. We did complete the logo contest, and Chase Media was actually the winner of the contest. So we have a logo for the DAO now, which is great. And what the next steps are going to be issuing the Livepeer Innovators DAO member role in Discord to all the new members, publishing the light paper, and then doing our inaugural vote. So look forward for that for this week. I've been quite busy. I was hoping to get to it maybe like before this water cooler, but I've just been too busy. So it's been summer and nice and lots of other things going on. So probably this week, get around to doing that vote. And you will be tagged in Discord for any updates for when votes happen and all these things. So if you are in the DAO, then you should just be getting tagged with the @LID, the @lid role in Discord. So I think that'll be the easiest way for us to track members and have a conversation. And then when that happens, then we can kind of work on some tooling that we're going to be using to running the rounds and all these things, as well as looking for updates with the Delta proposal, and hopefully we can put through a proposal to the Delta proposal or the Treasury almost right away. I think that'd be really exciting. So yeah, just a little bit on that front, and as we get through it, hopefully we'll be assigning some roles for people to help out with tasks and getting tooling set up and the website built and reaching out to members or potential applicants. So yeah, very excited about that. Does anyone else have any questions about the Innovators DAO or comments or suggestions they'd like to add?
I'm sorry, I've been gone so long, I have no idea what this is. I remember reading an announcement with this in the topic, but that's all I know.
Great. Well, the Livepeer Innovators DAO is just like a retroactive grant funding. Are you familiar, Ave? Are you familiar with the Delta proposal for the Livepeer Treasury?
Nope.
Okay, so quick, I'll get you up to speed real quick. So there's a proposal, an LIP going through, which is going to be a decentralized Livepeer Treasury, and something like 10% of all inflationary LPT is going to be put into a decentralized treasury. And that treasury is going to be funding DAOs and like layer 2 I guess like organizations or communities to promote the development of Livepeer, right, or adoption of Livepeer. And so what we've created is this layer 2, which is like it's called the Livepeer Innovators DAO. It's just a bunch of us in the community. We're getting together, making a DAO, and we're going to apply to the treasury for funding, and then we're going to be able to distribute those funds to projects that we see fit that create demand on the network, right? So the tier 1 treasury is like this decentralized treasury that just accumulates LPT on chain through the protocol. And then the Livepeer Innovators DAO is like a tier 2 DAO that like applies for the funding. We do an on-chain vote that the Livepeer Innovators DAO should receive this funding, and then the DAO will be able to hand it out as they see fit. So we're running the DAO, and so if you want to be a part of the DAO, Avi, just apply for it in the membership application. I don't know if you have a link for it, but yeah, I highly recommend it.
I don't appreciate if somebody would share it. And thanks for explaining that. That was a lot. Okay.
Yeah, and so the Livepeer Innovators DAO is just like we're giving away funding for people who've built things, toolings, grants, anything we really want that we see beneficial to the Livepeer ecosystem, we're going to be able to give them funds. So, which is pretty important. So yeah, cool.
I tuned out for 1 second, but I did hear. I mean, what did you ask for someone to send you a link to, for the Delta proposal or for the Livepeer Innovators DAO, or both?
Both, please, if you could.
I can.
I think the Delta proposal should probably be up in the forum, right?
Yeah,
It is in the, yeah. There's definitely a thread in the forum.
there's a
about that.
couple threads for it. Yeah.
I'll catch up on this.
As for the DAO grant application, here we go. This is the, I'll link you the application. Okay, so there's the form post for the application. You can sign up there, Avi. You might want to do it like today or tomorrow, because once we do the inaugural vote with the initial members, then every other new member will have to get voted in. So it just might take longer. Where the initial members kind of have a easier chance of getting in, I think.
Got it.
Cool. Yeah, that's about that. Yeah, excited for that to go forward and just kind of slowly mature as we move on. The next topic we're going to talk about is actually the get orchestrator request, and lo and behold, Brad has arrived, which is very, very nice. So yeah, we I believe Marco. Actually, Brad, are you here? Can you talk?
I am here. Can you hear
wanna-
me? Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to give us an update on the get orchestrator request and what happened recently?
Yeah. Marco has a dashboard. I was tracking response times to a kind of cut down orchestrator he was running. I guess he rewrote it in Node.js to send get orchestrator requests and get them back. But what Titan noticed was he was really slow in some regions, and for no particular reason that he could see. And then through me and Titan's digging and lots of log lines, we found that it was slowing down on an eth RPC call to get some sender information, which would be the broadcasters. And from there, I worked on adding some, or trying to move that eth call, RPC call, to the background, so that it would be faster when you're trying to start a stream. And what we found so far is that it's actually quite a bit faster for the people that have implemented it, I believe.
Yeah, like the difference between responding in 500, like 700 milliseconds, and responding in 17 milliseconds, right? Like that's there's literally the difference between my Singapore node.
And I wouldn't say it's battle tested yet. What I did, I just kind of did something to see if it'd work, and it's worked, thankfully, but it still needs to be thought through a little bit more.
Yeah.
And not to take away anything from it, I think Titan's probably a little more on the extreme end of the case. Extreme.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Edge issue there, because I mean it is faster for me. I'm running it on all my nodes, but I'm not seeing like that type of increase. I mean it's certainly faster, and but yeah, I was getting 700 plus in any region, not on the regular basis.
I think that's because you were using a fast RPC node to begin with, though.
Well, and whatever I mean, yeah, that's probably part of it. But I was just trying to say it is faster, and it depends on the region too. I noticed in like for the Las Vegas node that that Marco is running the test from. I'd say marginally faster there than I was before. I mean, before I was like maybe in like the 300 range, and now I'm in like the mid 200s for response time. So I guess it is, I think the RPC you're using dependent, where this should just kind of make that irrelevant what RPC you're using, because it's caching the data, if I understand right. Right, Brad?
Sorry about that. Somebody came in and talked to me.
Oh,
AKA my wife.
it's caching the data, so it shouldn't matter as much like your RPC
Yeah,
speed
so
anymore, right?
the main two fixes that I did was it was clearing out cached sender info or broadcaster info every 60 seconds. I arbitrarily increased that to like a week, just to see what happened with that. And then the other thing I did was it now calls every 10 minutes in the background to try to refresh that information for the sender info. And what it's calling out for is the broadcaster reserve information. So the Ethereum that they have put on their reserve, which then drives the tickets, the ticket values that are sent out, it's calling out to the our FRPC to confirm that information. And it's doing something with the claimed reserve. I'm not entirely sure what, can't remember exactly what it's doing, but those are the two things it's looking for.
So
And
just so I understand a little bit better, so um, you said something was getting flushed out every 60 seconds, and
yeah,
you changed
so
that to a week?
it's basically the call. It says get sender info. That's what it's calling out on the FRPC. I think it's a read-only method, and it's just to get the deposit and reserve information.
And
But
then
the
you
node
said,
also has a block watcher that I believe keeps this up to date as well. But I think the
wonder what the
fallback
purpose of
is.
having. Oh, so
I think
one's like a fallback.
I think so, because I don't know that like I think it's just a safety thing. I'm not entirely sure on why there's both, but I could imagine that not every transaction is synced all the time to a node, and it might come in late or something. I'm not super great with how the Ethereum's nodes sync up and how fast together,
Right. I guess so. Then my next question was, so you arbitrarily picked like a week, you're saying, for
hmm
it to hold that. Um, do you think there could be any issue with that? Or is it still continuing to pull new data, even though are there two different? That's what I'm not understanding. Are there two different sets of data? Because because it sounded like it's also doing something in the background, so it's pulling new data also, right?
Yeah,
I
I
guess.
don't think there's two different sets of data. I think there's just two different ways that it was trying to keep up with changes in broadcaster deposit reserve. One was as the nodes pull blocks, it looks for certain transactions in every block, and it does this on many different things for the Livepeer nodes in the Livepeer contracts. It looks for winning tickets. It looks for deposit or reserve, like withdrawn or unlocked, and things like that for this specific instance. And the other way it does it, it actually calls out get sender info to the Ethereum contract, which I think returns similar information. But I need to go look and try to confirm that. On your first question of will it pose an issue? I don't think so, other than a little bit of increased memory, but I don't know that any of us have been running it for a week yet to really see if anything will happen.
Let's see. 4 days for me. So yeah.
Titan might be a
Uh,
week. He was pretty fast on it.
Yeah, I can check to see what data it's pulling. Or what you said, the memory? It might increase the memory on the machine?
Well, it's just a cache, so it's just a key value store. It, in theory, could have more saved in there. I don't think it's going to be an issue because there's not like a million broadcasters on the network. So if you had a million broadcasters and they all hit your node to get information, it would cache that for a week for all million of them. But since we have far less than that, it's only going to cache, 10 informations for a week or something like that? We might even less than 10. I'm just rounding up.
It doesn't look like, my node has two streams going, and yet, like, it's still using half a gig of RAM. And that's, so I don't think it's actually increased the RAM at all, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would say that
yeah.
the
I'm
impact has
not
been
seeing
pretty
it either.
minimal.
Yeah, I'm not
And
seeing an increase now
Marco
that you mentioned it.
opened a
Yeah.
PR to kind of ask that question. Do these background RPC calls need to happen at all? I don't know. I don't think there's been movement on that. yet, but I could have missed it.
Cool. Either way, I like the upgrade. I haven't deployed it to all my nodes yet, but I do have them on like 3 of them. So just kind of monitoring them closely to see like if they get more streams or, I mean, the stream count hasn't really changed and I still get those random spikes. So I don't think it's really affected anything other than maybe Singapore, just because of how far the node was from Singapore. So like with just referring to Papa Bear, like if your response time was 300 milliseconds went down to 250, like there's a good chance that not only was your RPC might be near you as well, and so like there's just not a long delay between getting that information from the RPC, whereas in Singapore I'm not aware of any RPC providers being really dominant in Singapore. So, or at least the one I was using was just really slow. Like you could just ping the endpoint and it was just far away. And so the problem with Singapore was it was literally close to the ingest node, like within 15 milliseconds. Like it was on top of it. It was in almost the same server. But yet the RPC I was using was like, calling to New York or something. And so it was just killing the time. So it was a pretty egregious circumstance, but it really displayed the issue. And so if we want, like, further on down the line, if we want to spin up more nodes to get more global coverage, I think this fix really does fix it a lot, right?
Yeah, and it you saw something similar on your New York node. I could ping your New York orchestrator from my broadcaster in 8 milliseconds, but the first get orchestrator response you would send would be like 700 milliseconds, and then if you did it again within a minute, it would go down to like 12 milliseconds. So that's kind of where we figured out it could help a lot, but it could also add the ability to reduce the session pool building time from 500 milliseconds to say like 250 milliseconds. So streams could start faster.
Yeah, this actually affects the quickness at which streams can get started, which is, really important. Because that's dead time that is not recoverable.
Yep.
Whereas, like, if you can transcode something in real time, then you're in real time. But the selection process, if it takes 2 seconds, then, or like, if it takes 2 seconds to establish a stream, then you can't really ever make that back, unless you can. I don't know.
No, you can't. I don't know that you can. I mean, you're gonna have to wait for that to start up, and you're always gonna have that delay.
Yeah.
On it.
So if we're thinking about using, WebRTC for the source content, then every transcoded version after that is going to have this like arbitrary delay for selection, right? Which is unnecessary. We need to bring that down as quickly as possible.
Hey, Titan, are you using it in SAO, the update?
Yes.
Because I noticed you actually you won a few tickets there over the last couple of days, and I know tends to be a tough region, so it may be having a positive effect there.
Yeah, I actually did increase it in SAO.
Snooping on your dashboard, yeah.
Yeah, SAO, I thought specifically, there's going to be I don't think there's any RPC infrastructure for SAO. Like even, or maybe there is, but like, I figured that would be I think Singapore and SAO for me were the ones that were like, this was going to be largely affecting. And so, yeah, with this upgrade, it made those areas, I think, more responsive.
Yeah, I noticed you had some sticky streams there, which I didn't, which is, I think, kind of a rare thing, unless, you've got a node down there, which I think very few orchestrators do.
Definitely. Yeah, my dashboard says Singapore is down. It's not. It's just I have it misconfigured while I was doing all this testing. So, like, It was lots of fun. I have to go back through and clean up everything because it's all a mess. So Brad, just to confirm though, I did cherry pick your commit for that update. Is that going to be the final? Is that kind of like the final one that you're testing, or do you have any other commits come in quickly that you think would be an improvement that would be a must?
I do not. The only thing that might change is how that background update is done, but that's part. I'm not gonna do anything until there's some movement on the pull request that Marco put up to ask that question.
Cool. Okay. Oh, that being said, just about Git versioning and I need some Git help. Would you recommend putting like that cherry pick into a separate branch so that if you update it, I could like I've made some updates. Would I want to put that into a separate branch and then merge that into the master and then put yours into like a separate branch and merge that into the master? And then if the master gets all messy, you can kind of just like what's it called, rebasing? Like you could like rebase it and then remerge. Like how would you do that? What's a clean way of doing this?
If you're just adding one commit, I don't know that you need a separate branch because you can always rebase and just drop that commit in the rebase. But if you're doing other changes, like say between your versions of things on your code base, you might want to start with a different branch and then pull it into master once you think it's going fine and it's working, you know?
Right, because I made some changes that I wanted to make. Like what I did was I added the amount of pixels that you actually transcode in the log lines. So it doesn't just tell you the amount of segments, and it tells you the video profile, but it also tells you the exact amount of pixels that you transcoded in that uploaded file, the segment that you sent back. And in doing so, I have this modification, and I'm like, do I want to leave this in my master? Or because then I merged yours in with my master, and so my changes are in there with your changes, and I'm like, I'm gonna like, if I screw something up, like I have to go, like, I don't want to lose what I did, right?
Yeah.
So like that update of pixels into the log lines, I should probably put that in my own branch and then merge that into my master, right?
I think so. I mean, the degrees of separation are what you feel most comfortable with. Like when I update, so like my master branch on like my forked repo of Go Livepeer, when I want to update to the latest stable version, I'll check out the official one and then I'll just cherry pick all of my commits onto it. But I'm less than 20, so it doesn't really take that much to get that done.
And those commits, are they in separate branches?
No,
Oh.
they're on my forked master branch, but when I'm updating, I change it so that I check out the official master and then I add all my commits on top again. And if it works and makes and everything works fine, I will just then I'll then push that to my master branch. But if it's not working or if I'm not feeling great about it, I will push it to a separate branch on my repo to see so that I don't mess up the master one.
Right. So
that
you
makes
can
sense.
you
It's kind
can
of situational.
you can pick your commits that you want to merge into a new repo, like from the current master.
Yeah, because when you're working on it locally, like when you say like git checkout -b, you're just creating a new branch. Or when you check out the master, like the newest version from Livepeer, you're just working on it locally until you push up to your remote. It's all local, so you can just trash everything if it goes horrible.
Right. So I'm trying to have this pixel. I mean, it's like the smallest upgrade you can imagine, but it's like something I'm proud of because I figured it out. So I'm like, don't want to lose it. So I'm like, I almost just want to put it into a separate branch just so it's like there, and I could just nuke the master, rebase it off of like the latest stable, and then just like pull that commit in.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Cool.
Mine get copied to so many different branches. I know it's somewhere because I always just mess with stuff.
Yeah, because I'm looking at yours and I'm like, I'm just like, I'm like, oh god, like I'm just such a Git noob, so I'm like just trying to figure this out. I'm like, oh god, I don't even know the terms.
There's a decent amount of changes on mine. I'd be a little careful.
Yeah, like I cherry picked yours and I'm like, uh-oh, it like merged it with mine and I'm like, uh-oh, like is this good or bad? Like I'm gonna forget what I've done. So okay, anyway, sorry, a bit of a rant on being a Git noob. Okay. Yeah, so cool. Let's move on. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about the Get Orchestrator response time or this upgrade that Brad has proposed?
No, the only thing I've noticed, I have applied it to all of my nodes. The response time improved on all of them, to be honest.
Cool.
We were seeing, like, just for reference, I think, Titan, when we were testing this, we were seeing the FRPC calls. They settled around like 240 milliseconds. Is that right? But there was 2 of them. So it would be double that is what we were seeing on your node. Now that's going to change node to node, and it might just be 100 milliseconds on some.
Wait, what happened?
So when we were testing this, didn't we saw the get sender info and the claimed reserve. Those were the 2 FRPC calls. We would see each of those being about 240 milliseconds on your node, if I remember right.
Yes, that's right.
So, and like in Pawn and Papa Bear, they probably didn't see quite that big of a change. So we were talking about on your node, we deleted about 500 milliseconds. With a faster FRPC, you might delete 1 to 200 milliseconds, but that can get you from 350 milliseconds to 450 milliseconds response time down to like 100 or 150. So it might not be as drastic as Titan saw, but it can be pretty significant, especially if we can look at reducing or lowering that session building loop at the beginning from 500 milliseconds down to 250 or something.
Yeah. And I've wondered how this affects people getting into the stream selection process if you don't get streams very often. Or no, wait, we already talked about this. If a note, like if Singapore doesn't send enough get orchestrator requests to keep up, then there's a good chance it was just like messing with the stream selection a lot. So hopefully this might clean up the stream selection a bit more to more accurately track, the opportunities people get.
Yeah, and this is not reported anyway from a broadcaster
Because
right now.
I will say,
so there's no way of knowing other than just like I'm getting nothing. Why is somebody with the same or similar state getting more, or it looks like they're getting more than me?
Yeah, like I'm just looking at the pools that you've created on your dashboard, and so far, like my New York node, since I've done the update, has been in almost the most amount of pools. I think there's one person ahead of me. It's interesting. But there's quite a few people that are like missing a lot of pools. So since the update, I'm maxing out. Like,
Yeah.
Like
you're pretty much maxed out.
Yeah, like one.
And it's normal to miss a couple every now and then.
Yeah,
it just happens.
Yeah, but like, just looking like authority null. Authority, have you updated yours to the newest? He might have just it's hard to tell, but like I know Varies is up all the time, and so his is like 1228 and mine's 1225. So like that's a good benchmark of how many pools there actually were. But some people only got 130 pools, like so they're just not even getting in the selections, right?
Mm-hmm. They may also be not in the local to that region.
Sure, but but this is exactly my point, though. This is exactly my point. 500 milliseconds, you should be getting it. It shouldn't matter how far away you are, because you can go around the globe twice, and get under 500 milliseconds with a ping. Like,
yeah, no, that's also a good point. But that does then, I guess, kind of go back to then what Brad was saying about lowering the what the time should be, because we don't want to be selecting people that are across the globe and getting randomly selected because they're responding in time that can't transcode fast enough.
Yeah, so this update will actually mess with that a bit, because if everyone does this update, then people in Singapore will just get randomly selected from New York because they're within 500
Right.
milliseconds, right? And that being said, that's a good fix, because now we can actually lower the distance to like 250 or 200 or whatever we deem reasonable. Because right now, arbitrarily, we can get 500 just because you have a slow RPC. So you could be right. I'm 8 milliseconds away from Brad, but yet I'm responding in like 700 because my RPC is waiting too long. So it's just not correct at all, right? So
I wonder if I could add this to the public logs, because right now there's not really a log line, like the latency part. I have a commit on my fork that adds like a metric for it, but the log lines might be better because it's just easier to add. Doesn't mess with the metrics, and we have the Loki set up so we could actually get some data on what the Livepeer Inc. bees see as response times.
it'd be good to
Now
know
that I was waiting on, just a sidebar slightly on the introspection, we might talk about this more later, but I was waiting for the Ethereum address and the orchestrator key, like the keys, to get merged, and now that's merged. Now I can start sending more stuff, and there was no point in sending all the other stuff to me if I couldn't get the more descriptive fields added too.
Right. So now that
Are you guys able to hear me? Sorry.
yeah, we can hear you now, Brad.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to jump in and say I updated New York yesterday, and I believe my LA node has been on it for about 3 days. So I'm not sure what you're seeing on the swaps, but those are my only 2 nodes updated to Brad's build.
We don't see any swaps on New York, but you're only like 1,015 pools of 1,200.
Yeah, if you had any downtime,
Or if you're
No.
just sitting back, if you're sitting back orchestrator capped too, you're not going to be in the pool. So both those things,
No, I'm not
not
seeing any
responding to the
errors back.
RPC or capped or just down. Yeah, if you're not, you won't be in the pool.
Well, I don't have any of those errors.
And did you say you updated LA?
Sorry, LA's on Plutus.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was going to ask. How you
Yeah,
did that?
no, my bad. Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's just New York and maybe Singapore then.
Fair enough.
yeah. So anyway, I think hopefully this will like fix some of these metrics once it gets fully deployed. Yeah, some people are just not in many of these stream select. It'll be nice to also, instead of just using Brad's tester, maybe just using like a. Hopefully, we can get a lot of this stuff done into Livepeer Inc.'s prod servers. Is that what you're trying to push for?
I agree, but I'm the only one doing it, so I'm the roadblock at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you are not just the roadblock. You are the gateway. You are the master. So we do appreciate all of the effort you put into this.
Well, I appreciate that.
Wait, maybe I missed something. What are you the roadblock to, or what are you saying you're the roadblock to?
Getting the because anybody can send up a PR with just any of the log lines, right? But I'm the only one that's doing it at the moment. So I am the roadblock.
Oh, for the log lines.
I have to prioritize it over everything else.
Okay. I thought you were
to
talking
get to
about
that
the
point.
update.
It's on a list. It'll get done.
I
It's just
I
don't
thought you were
know
talking
when.
about the update, the caching update that you the caching update, which Marco.
Oh no, that's not. I'm not the roadblock on that yet.
Yeah,
not yet. I will be at some point.
Yeah. And yeah, Ben, I'm just looking at your scores on Marco's tool, and I can see your Singapore is dramatically improved since
Oh, well, that's good news. I
yeah,
like good news.
in the
Thank
last
you.
couple of days. So yeah, it's another
Excellent.
vote for that. This is definitely increases your or sorry, decreases your get orchestrator request times.
Brad is the man. Literally fixing Livepeer's core problems by himself.
Yeah, dude.
With
I can't say
Titan.
it's by myself.
Sorry, Titan's the one who brought it up. But yeah,
Titan will hook into
all of you
something,
guys,
and
thank you.
he will not let it go until he figures it out.
Well, I don't know. I would like it to work.
I know.
I want it to work
I
too.
still remember when you couldn't compile. Man, you've come a long way.
Dude, I can compile now. This is amazing. Now I'm learning Git. Like, oh my goodness. I'm getting sucked into this world. No, but it's good though, because these are some pretty big things. Like, I don't know. Like, I think being able to provide like a good service to the end user is pretty important. If we can't do that, then
that's
I don't think the
like
network
all that
will.
matters.
Yeah, like
Right.
if we can't do that, then like the network just won't win, no matter how fancy we get with our algorithms and our stake weighted selections and our governance proposals and our LIPs. Like, if the end user is just like not happy with what they're seeing, we're just gonna lose, right? So, like, we need to be as close as we can to real time. We need to be as reliable as we possibly can, and make it so. And then I think the economics will work itself out once we start gaining adoption. So we have the ability to adjust price per broadcaster. So like, if I think in the short term here, I might actually change my public price to something like 300 way per pixel, just so that if anyone wants to use the network, they can use it at a very inexpensive rate. But then you can just set Livepeer Inc.'s price per pixel to $8.99, and there you go. So you're still getting the amount that you want from that broadcaster, but the rest of the public network, hey, Titan knows on a discount because I want to supply some really cost effective transcoding, right? So
That's weird. I never even thought about using the price per broadcaster in that way to make it more expensive for certain ones. I always only thought about it in the other direction to give people discounts. So it's actually an interesting way of thinking about it.
yeah, I was actually going to set my price per pixel to 0 and then just have Livepeer Inc. at $8.99. And then just like hey, someone wants to use the network for free, like just come on board. Like, I've got tons of capacity. Give it a try. Like, you don't have to put in a deposit. You don't have to put in a reserve. You can just use mainnet for free as you figure out what's going on. And it doesn't affect the income I get from Livepeer Inc.
Yeah, but how do your transcoders feel about that?
They don't feel much because they're pretty much idle anyway.
Yeah, but if someone did come in and wanted to use you because you're free and they had a lot of jobs, your transcoders wouldn't get paid, would they?
Well,
I think what Ben is saying is you need to look at your terms of use or your
I mean,
agreement.
yeah, you gotta let your transcoders know, right? Like, if some guy comes in and is like, "Oh
It
man,
needs to be
Titan's
in there.
free," and he gives you 100 jobs, and then your transcoders don't get anything, they're gonna be wondering where the money is.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'll like, yeah, sure, yeah, it's a good point. I haven't fully thought this through. This is just
We're just trying to help. It's all
I
good.
like just like, yeah, being negative and throwing random issues out there. Makes me feel good.
Like, hey, if I get 100 streams, like, that's great. Like,
Yeah, but it's not you doing the work. It's your teas.
Yeah, but my teas will get paid. I'll pay them out. I'll subsidize them. I don't care. Like, I'll give them some of the money.
Yeah, I mean, as long as your dashboard still accrues the income the exact same, there's not an issue. And
Yeah.
I forget, how does your accounting work? Do you do they get paid like if you're
it's on pixels, right? Pixels processed.
Yeah, I pay them per pixel.
But do you consider what the what you're getting paid when, like, is that part of the thing, or is it just you do the pixels and you have a price that you pay out per pixel?
Right now, I haven't built in the logic for doing different prices per broadcaster for my transcoders. So if I do like free for someone else, I'm still paying out my transcoders.
Right. So it wouldn't affect them then.
No, but I'm gonna be adjusting that, and then kind of saying, listen, like, I mean, okay, maybe 0 is a bad, maybe it's like a highly discounted rate or something, or maybe I say, certain transcode. I don't know. I haven't thought about this yet, but I'm just thinking from like a transcoders in the pool. Maybe they're willing to accept, one stream from Livepeer Inc. at $8.99 and a stream from some random for 0, and it kind of evens out. And the idea is we're giving away freebies while we have such excess capacity because we want adoption and we want a good onboarding experience, right? Or maybe we give away some sort of like free credit where we say, hey, you can use, you can paste in your broadcaster address into some sort of dashboard, and for the next 7 days you're going to get free transcoding. And so this, you're able to test it out, right? And are transcoders in the pool okay with doing some free work? If they're not, they can leave. I mean, it's a public pool, right? So it kind of depends. If people aren't happy with how much they're making, then they can just leave or start up their own orchestrator or join a different pool, right? So as long as I'm transparent about how much they're getting paid and what I'm doing economically, I think that's a fair game.
Yeah, fair enough.
Very good idea, actually. I mean, all these GPUs sitting around doing nothing. We may as well just make it easy for folks to give it a whirl, really.
Yeah, like, I mean,
It's kind of like being in live pool. I'm just taking it, just making kind of fun of it. But
sure.
Oh
Yeah.
man, all right.
We're not gonna dig too deep on
Throwing
that
shade.
issue, but yeah, no, I think if like a number of us orchestrators just set our public price per pixel to 0, like it might give an opportunity for someone to mess around with Catalyst more easily, and maybe a broadcaster node more easily. Anyone that wants to use Studio can just easily go through Studio, and it doesn't affect our relationship with Inc. But from a public standpoint, like, maybe it would be a good idea to encourage adoption through freebies until, and you can kind of clearly see, like, hey, this broadcaster is regularly sending me 100 streams and they're getting it for free. Okay, they've had their ride, I can increase their price per pixel, and if they want to start gaming it, then okay, well, then I'll just increase it publicly and that'll end that, right? But I think that would be a pretty good problem to have. I would encourage that type of problem, which is people wanting to use us.
I agree. And as this Livepeer in a box, which is basically the Studio, the equivalent of what Studio is in a Docker image, as that progresses, people might be able to spin up and just set their price to 0 and just see how it works. It's a pretty polished interface on that thing if they get it to work.
Yeah. Imagine you can just spin up something and just have it work out of the box without depositing any money. Might be a nice, nice.
No account sign up, no like email provided. Just spin it up and send a stream out.
Yeah, comes back, works, awesome. If you start scaling, then it might become obvious. Like, hey, like, no, it's not free forever, but like, hey, it's it's an easy way to get in. Because I know when I spun up a broadcaster node, it was really annoying to put a deposit in. Like, it was like you had to wait to get it out, and you had to not forget about it, and you had to use the command line, the CLI, and just felt a bit clunky, and had to put some deposit in for something I just wanted to do some testing. So that's why I'm happy the price per broadcaster is out. But now you can actually use it in reverse, make it free for everyone except for Livepeer Inc. Right?
Do you still have to put a deposit in even if the orchestrator you're going to is at 0?
Nope.
Nope.
Oh, that's
You
a
gotta
lot.
set your price to 1 though. Just that's a new
It
one.
has to be 1.
Yeah, it'll panic and destroy itself if it's not 1.
And even if it's 1, you still don't have to put a deposit in.
Correct. But it's kind of strange that to put in your max price of 1. You're like, well, I got no money. Sure, I'll
So
pay $1
what
or
does the
whatever.
flow look like for the broadcaster? Is it just like set the price that you accept to 1 and then just spin it up and hope it
Yeah.
connects to a orchestrator that has a price that low?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But even if you have it set to, because if you don't have it set to 1, then it'll like just tell you that you don't have enough reserve. Or will people reject you because you don't have enough reserve?
You get rejected. Insufficient reserve is the rejection.
Unless you charge 0 weight per pixel, in which case then you'll accept it anyway. So it doesn't have to be 1. It can be anything. It just can't be 0 for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, my reserve is like 0.065. It is very small, which is why my tickets are like $1. Because the tickets that come out at your reserve divided by 100, which is fail safe, so that if everybody cashed a ticket, every orchestrator cashed a ticket all at the same time to be ultra conservative, it could be paid out in theory.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's an interesting, unique way of doing the price per pixel setup, and so yeah, it could be a good way for maybe like the Livepeer Innovators DAO to like push the Livepeer in a box implementation and say, hey, listen, it's free for the next year or something, or maybe there's some sort of like kind of collaboration we can do to say, hey, listen, like people can try this out for free, or they can get involved, send a stream, see how it goes, and we can kind of do it with the actual on mainnet transcoders, whereas instead of testnet where no one's actually transcoding there, you're not going to be happy with the result anyway, right? So just some ideas around pushing some marketing around some free trials in a
That's a
public
great-
domain.
They should even do it. Well, I mean, they'll need to do it in the protocol, because if it's not allowed to go to 0, I think they should, just so that even other folks building sort of interfaces can just set their price to 0 and folks can try it for free.
All right, Brad, you want to put that on your laundry list of things to do?
I'm sorry, I tuned out. What needs to be 0?
I think Avi was saying allow the broadcaster to set it to 0, their price they're willing to pay.
Yeah, I think that'll be a
instead of the 1, make it not panic and kill itself when it's
Yeah, that would make a lot
0.
more sense.
Yeah, it's just then we could
Because
say
it is kind of weird.
enter
I
0
know
for
I'm
the
only
free
paying
trial.
1 way per pixel, but if you have no money, like I can't pay anybody for anything right now, type deal. So it is kind of strange. But yeah, I'll add it to a list somewhere. Some list. One of these lists.
All right. If 0, do not panic. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Rule number 1. There we go. Cool. Okay. That was a nice little tangent. That was great. Any other topics around the get orchestrator request or some of the logic around orchestrators? Broadcasters? Cool. Let's move into our next topic, which is going to be around Livepeer audits for payments. Papa Bear, do you want to talk a little bit about your topic and what you were thinking?
Well, I mean, what made me bring it up is that I just like if I go back and look at payouts, like just picking yesterday, because yesterday was pretty recent. Like you just see a lot of double, like, are people getting paid out twice in a row, and just wondering if there's any way to like audit check to make sure that there's not some sort of issue that's you know, those are like that. It should be paying out like that. You know, like if I just go back to just yesterday, I see like Zodap got paid twice in a row, and then, you know, a little bit after that, I see Killout got 3 payouts in a row, and then pretty much right after that, I see Ultima Ratio got 2 payouts in a row, and then I see an orchestrator named E60 got 2 payouts in a row. Just seems unlikely that there's that many payouts in a row. To a single orchestrator, but you know, I mean, it's possible. Then you can scroll down a little bit more. I see Moz Computing got 2 in a row. Just seems pretty. And it's not like, oh, just yesterday I saw this. I mean, I notice it pretty much on a daily basis, and it tends to kind of come in like somewhat of patterns where you'll see that. So I just don't know if something's maybe getting stuck somewhere where like I don't know if, I mean, I know it's not the same payout going twice, because that I know there's checks for that, and you can look and see like the I don't even know what it's called, but like a ticket hash that's different. But oh, and then like, you know, Ultima Ratio another 2 in a row later that day. So you know, it seems to happen, you know, fairly frequently. And then Pawn got 2 in a row. It just seems, I mean, it doesn't seem statistically likely that there would be that many payouts that just go to the same orchestrator or twice in a row. I mean, I would understand it more if it was like Vary's getting it several in a row, because, you know, he gets quite a bit more work than most of the orchestrators do. So when you just see some of the smaller orchestrators or mid-sized orchestrators hitting it, just, I guess, would be interesting to see if there was some way to audit that or check it just to see if it's right. Don't know if like maybe there's extra payments going out just in general and Livepeer is paying that, or should payments be going to other orchestrators that aren't getting it?
Since it's all off chain, I don't know what there is to do. I mean, I do know on my streams, the first 2 segments both send a ticket. That's the only thing that I know, though. But everything else, like all those payments, all that's negotiated off chain and calculated off chain. And if it's poof, there's a winner. I mean, there's a function that determines if it's a winner or not. But I don't know how to audit that.
Is it always from Livepeer Inc.? Like, it's not someone just sending themselves winning tickets, right?
Yeah, they're always Livepeer Inc. Or I mean, at least I would say most of the time. I mean, I don't see it like coming out on Brad's. Like I don't see Brad making like 2 payouts in a row very often, or if I don't know if I've ever, but maybe once or twice. But even though it sends out 2 tickets, Brad, like when you're you know, for your test, those are still separate tickets though, right? I mean, it's not the same ticket going out for.
I think it's separate. I can try to get some log lines to see if there's. I don't know that there's anything that says yes or no on that though.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems. Does anyone else think it's strange? I mean, just how many I went through just from yesterday.
Let me just run a query and see how many O's have won 2 tickets, and then see if there's some disparity in the number of times those O's have won tickets, just to start
It
things
was
off.
it was an issue a while ago. There's a very old forum post by someone on the team. I forget who it was exactly, but there was something in Livepeer that was causing duplicate tickets that was fixed a long time ago. So maybe that issue has come back somehow.
Oh, you're talking about like instead of sending 1, it would send 3 or something. Like every time it sent a ticket.
Yeah, I'd have to find the forum post, like
Yeah, I think I
exactly
remember
what
that.
caused it. Yeah,
I think I remember seeing that.
but
I
it
have,
was an
My-
identical issue. I just don't know if the cause was the same. Sorry.
My experience being the opposite. I won a 0.3 ETH ticket recently, and I haven't said
Yeah.
any face my tickets
That
because I just want
that's
to see how
because
the
there was a gas spike. I caught that too, and there was a gas spike during that time. So you got
it's like before
you got
Arbitrum
lucky.
days tickets.
Yeah, you got lucky. And that's understandable. I understand how that happens, but yeah, it just seems like there's quite a few a lot of double payouts.
Have we ever inspected
And
the
I'm not saying they're double. They're not even necessarily double payouts. Just the same orchestrator is getting paid out twice before, in a row. And again, just seems, I know statistics can play games with your mind, but it still seems just a bit odd.
What about the Code for Arena audit that was done on Livepeer? Was there any mention of it, or did people gloss over it, or has anyone inspected the audits?
I didn't catch what you said. What about which?
The Code
what are
for
we talking about?
Arena, the Code for Arena audit that
I
audited
think that was.
Livepeer.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing
Yeah, I mean,
another one for the Delta upgrade.
yeah, that's why I was getting a little confused. I would think if something was found, it would have been mentioned, but I didn't look into it.
Might be worth digging back through that audit and just seeing if like anyone mentioned anything. I can't say myself I've read the whole audit, so don't know what was brought up. Maybe it was just completely missed, or maybe it's working as it's supposed to. And I would say though that if you look at the dashboard and you just go through the Explorer, like the payments, the amount of like earnings people get for the amount of stake they have, and for the amount of like geographic distribution, it seems like pretty realistic. There doesn't seem to be like massive discrepancies between like income. Like if someone's got twice as much stake, they got, roughly maybe twice as much ETH earnings, and depending on their setup, and it's not like somebody with low stake is getting 4 ETH in the trailing 90 days, and somebody with tons of stake is getting like half that, right? It's like it seems pretty in line with the statistics lining up.
I don't know how to really check that or to verify that.
That's an
but,
eyeball. That's just me eyeballing
yeah.
it. It's like squinting, and then just looking at your computer screen and going, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
I mean, I will say, and again, I don't know how accurate like my dashboard is really like calculating everything, but in general, I win more tickets than I like statistically should if I look at just like what my projected ticket value is that I've received during a day.
Like if you just go to the Explorer and search, just go by trailing 90-day fees.
Yeah, well, that's hard to really to use that because if I do that, I mean, I'm near the top on that, and I'm not one of the top, by a stake. I'm not one of the highest staked orchestrators. I mean, I have a good amount of stake, but
yeah, but yeah, no, you're right, but you're in line with roughly where you should be. You don't have twice as much income as, somebody with roughly the same amount of stake.
right. But then again, it's hard to like you said, it's when you get down to like how many, where do you have nodes, how many nodes do you have, and all that kind of stuff. It really kind of, like I would think, well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, or maybe I'm completely bonkers because like just looking at this, some things are off, right? So I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't expect it to go, like just straight like in order down the list as far as like like highest amount of stake, and then you're gonna have the highest amount of ETH earned. I guess partially for what we just talked about with having different regional capacities and coverage, but yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at it that way, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not even that it's evenly distributed. I just don't know that it's right. The amounts and again, also the stakes change too, so it's also kind of hard to use that as a you don't know, like did someone get 60K of stake and then they're change their position in how much stake they have, but they haven't had it for 90 days, so their 90-day trailing will be off. I don't know if that's the best way to look at it. No, on the other hand, I don't know if the best way to look at it is the way I am either, going, oh, look at this one, got 2 in a row, 2 in a row, 2 in a row. but it just seems really odd to me that how often you see 2 in a row going to the same orchestrator.
There you go. I have no idea what to say other than someone should look into it. I go down rabbit holes and I tend to like. So I'm just not going to start down this rabbit hole today. Like
That's the one where you draw the line. Great. I
yeah,
was hoping you'd pick this up and
I've
figure it all
got
out.
too many
have it all
things on my
sorted, but-
plate. This is not a rabbit hole I can get into. Maybe later. Because then next thing I'll know, I'll be knocking on Brad's door saying, "Hey, we got to fix this." And we're spending weeks together.
We'll just we just maybe add it as a log line.
Yeah,
on
that's a
the
log line,
introspection.
right?
Dude,
No, but on the introspection, then you get some more info.
yeah, it's
At
more.
least you can see something.
Brad's a master at log lines. We just gotta log line it up.
We're just gonna make that server, that Loki server, beg for forgiveness. Or to be let free.
Definitely. Cool. Okay, well, we do have some more people that have joined us, so I'm gonna go through and just welcome everyone who has joined us that hasn't done an introduction yet. Brad, you haven't done an introduction. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, Brad was at Astro Video, running a node for a few years. No particular topic for me, just here to help or answer questions, possibly about the introspection, but we've talked about that a little bit already.
Right on. Thank you for joining. Flo, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hello everyone, I'm Flo from Moss Computing. I'm an orchestrator from 1 year now. Don't have any topic today, but it was nice to hear about this issue with RPC just before. So
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you for joining. Thul, we got Thul joining us. Thul, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey there, I'm Jaron. I am the lead of the Mist server team. Used to be part of Livepeer. It's a little bit weird. Don't really have a topic, but I believe you mentioned you wanted to potentially do Q&A thing, and depending on timing, I might be able to do so.
Yeah, definitely. Are you sticking around with us for a little bit here, or are you just coming in for a quick hello?
I have no idea.
Cool.
Right now I have time, but who knows what the world looks like in 15 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you for joining
Hammer
us.
in with questions.
Yeah, let's
Go,
just
go.
hammer in with questions now. Actually, yeah. Well, if you don't mind, we're gonna jump into that just after we finish these introductions because we don't have many other topics.
Yeah, finish your rounds.
Cool. Right. Well, thank you for joining us, Yahom. Frank, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Frank. I'm running Ultima Node since 3 years now, and I have no particular topic. Just interested to try the release from Brad about the RPC issue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us, Frank. Varies, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, I've been running the Virus and Immersed If orchestrator since 4.5 years now. Maybe one quick topic I'm curious about your opinion is like the initial treasury contribution parameters of the Delta proposal. Just, yeah, what's your opinion on this? If you agree with like the initial 10% rate and the 750K LPT treasury limit.
Very good. That's a great topic. So very good. Thank you for joining us, Varies. Okay. Yeah, but we're gonna before we get into the treasury topic, let's dive into a little bit of Thul lately. Yahom, what have you been up to lately? You kind of quickly said there. You said you were with Livepeer, but now you're just with Mist. Do you want to give us an update on what you've been working on? What your current situation is?
Yeah, actually, not all that much has changed. Like on paper, I am now just our company. We started a new company, me and the rest of the Mist team, that we're all part owner of. And on paper, the Livepeer just hired us to do basically the exact same thing we were doing before. So it's a little weird because we effectively do the exact same stuff, but we're technically independent. It's weird.
Sure. Yeah, kind of contractors rather than employees of like Livepeer Inc.
Yeah, with the nice benefit that Livepeer is not our only customer. We had customers before Livepeer bought the Mist server team, and then they graciously gave us back those customers afterwards. So we effectively have now a sustainable company with multiple customers that, all have interesting different needs, and Livepeer is just our biggest one.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. So, that being said, so you obviously have been doing some transition here, doing similar things, but also servicing other customers. Do you want to talk a little bit about those other customers, or is that more confidential within the company and you'd rather stick more about
Not
Livepeer specific?
everything is. I can mention a few things. We've been doing some cool stuff with ESL recently. I don't know if everyone here knows who ESL is, the Electronic Sports League. They do the big Counter-Strike tournaments and stuff like that. Those are all run by them. They do other games as well, but that's the biggest one. And Miss Server was actually used a couple weeks back when they did the World Championship in Cologne, and that was fun. We got a little bit of behind-the-scenes look there, and we're able to see how they used everything. Cool stuff. Of course, we still help Picarto, which is a name that many people here have heard before. Like, that's not going anywhere. We have a bunch of other customers that are not as interesting as the ones I just named. But we've been doing a little bit of work for Nissan as well. A lot of that is unfortunately under NDA, but I can say we're doing some cool stuff with self-driving cars there in video.
Wow, you just piqued my interest. That's incredible. Now, is this
Yeah, I can't say too much about it, unfortunately, but self-driving cars, Nissan.
okay? Cool. Yeah, we'll end it there. So I do appreciate that little sampling of information. So that is very exciting. It sounds like you've regained some of the reins, and you're going to continue growing and expanding Mist server on their core product.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep it all open source in case anyone's wondering. Like the license is not changing, and we're gonna keep doing the thing we have been doing, where everything is open for everyone.
Definitely. What is this new company? It was DDVTech was the company before. Is it called something
Yeah,
different
it
now?
still is. But DDVTech now has a new owner that is Optimist Video.
There you go. Well, say hello to Optimus Video, everyone. Nice to see you. So your day to day then, what are you working on mostly?
Well, basically Mist and making sure that releases keep going. You may have seen that the last few months we did quite a few releases. A lot of those contain features that Livepeer needed, but also stuff that Livepeer didn't need that other customers are using. We're doing a lot of interesting stuff with the ability to do clipping, which interestingly is not going to be used by Livepeer. They have their own clipping solution. But we have a cooler one, which I can say. And it allows you to do fun stuff like in a live stream, create an MP4 of something in the last few minutes instantly on demand at any point, which is fun. We've also been doing a lot of work on making automated testing possible. Literally earlier today, I was doing the last few steps to getting a system working that allows you to basically connect any of Mist's inputs to an output without needing to go through memory first. And the plan is to use this to verify every build and make sure that inputs and outputs still behave as they should, and within acceptable limits, stuff like that.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's very, very cool. So that being said, so you spend most of your time on Mist server. Anything, Mist server obviously has a suite of products and things that it does. How much of that is involved in the Livepeer stack, or is it not really at all? You're just kind of assisting the Livepeer integration as you guys keep developing.
Oh, there's the Livepeer stack is entirely dependent on Mist server for life still. VOD is more or less standalone. They tried to build that on the Mist stack, had some trouble, then did it themselves, and now they have worse trouble, which is always funny. But I'm not sure how that is going to go in the future. Like, I'm not the decision maker there. Of course, we'd be happy to see them use it for VOD as well. And I have a feeling they probably will, because we have quite a few things that they are going to be needing soon. And continuing to develop these things in-house is definitely going to slow them down. So we'll see how that goes. And I also help them with debugging things that are not necessarily Mist related. Like we still play an advisory role in terms of helping with like what codecs they should pay attention to, stuff like that. I'm finally getting their attention in AV1, but it's a slow process.
Yeah, so I've heard someone on the Livepeer team talk about AV1 adoption a little bit, and they mentioned that it's actually not a high priority because, fancy encoding, decoding, methods is less important than just the standard and doing it cheaply and reliably. What's your opinion on that, or do you see AV1 being
pretty much the inverse.
okay?
Like
Elaborate.
I believe that this fancy stuff of encoding, like the things that are very hard to do at scale, is where Livepeer can shine the brightest, because that's the whole thing of doing the things that are impossible to scale, and scaling that is exactly the kind of stuff you can do with this whole network of orchestrators, right? Everyone's trying to optimize everything, so it's the perfect opportunity to go into those niche markets and claim those high ticket items, because AV1 encoding is, I think, somewhere on the scale of 50 times more expensive than H.264. And people are willing to pay those prices. And the hardware is not that much more expensive anymore. It's just less common. So that sounds like a golden opportunity to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Intel be cheaper than NVIDIA cards.
Yeah, and not just Nvidia. Like the newest Intel cards have it too. The newest AMD cards have it. Like all the big CPUs and GPUs have AV1 in their latest models.
Right. And so you're the cheerleader trying to get AV1 adoption into the Livepeer network. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm trying.
Is one of the big issues the FFmpeg being so tightly tied into Livepeer's the way I've heard it, there's something about the way that FFmpeg is tied into Livepeer stack that makes it difficult to update. Is that
Yeah, they have
true?
a custom version of it with a whole bunch of patches on top. But I believe most of those patches are no longer needed these days. So with some luck, they'll be abandoning most of those patches and just moving to a mainline FFmpeg build soon. Like, I don't know what the timeline on that is, but it certainly is looking feasible and more feasible every day. And that should free up some of that. But I think the biggest problem is that the protocol as it currently stands can only do H.264. Like, there is no mechanism to communicate wanting to do another codec. So even though the technical capability might be there, there needs to be some sort of messaging upgrade there, where the different parts can signal that they are able to do this and for what price they're willing to do this. And that's like a big thing that's missing. Like, there's no way to communicate, gee, I can do H.264 for this price or AV1 for this other price. Like, there's just one price you communicate right now. That needs to be updated.
Yeah, I mean, considering that Livepeer at its core is a transcoding service or transcoding, at its base, that seems like that would be something that would be a high priority for Livepeer to work on. But just my
I
opinion.
would agree, yeah. But yeah,
There is
people at
some
Livepeer don't agree all.
there's some capabilities messaging back from the orchestrators,
Yeah, a
but
little
it's
bit, but
pretty
like not
much
to this
all
degree.
the same capabilities every time. I don't think I've seen anything different
Yeah,
on them.
yeah. It's more or less a versioning thing more than that it is a thing that lets you show what hardware capabilities you have.
Yeah, and it's also like the capabilities I think default down to the worst GPU you have hooked up. From at least on the transcoder side, it doesn't like compute capacities per GPU. Like if you have one GPU that can do AV1, and then like maybe an old 1070 that's just the good old workhorse that can't do AV1. It doesn't. I don't know that it does the capacities correctly on it. It has the ability and it does send back capacities, but I don't think it's been built out all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that's been bothering me for years now is that you are encouraged to do a crappy encode because how fast you encode it is all that matters. And I would like to see room for a way to say, hey, I would like to pay more for a really good encode that's done slower, but does better compression without quality loss. And right now, that's just not an option. And I would love to see that because that's one of those other things where I think we could really shine.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost no ability to put any
No, you can't
parameters
change that.
on the encoding.
And that's also
Yeah.
in LPMS. That's not in Go Livepeer. Just FYI for people.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's this big missing thing that really should be addressed. And I pretty much every day I say to the people in Livepeer that make the decisions, hey, let's prioritize this. But they're very much trying to find product market fit, and increasing the feature list is not something that's currently really on their radar. But yeah, thankfully
You
I'm
don't.
slightly
Yeah,
independent here and can do some work whether they like it or not. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You
Well, it
happen to
seems to me
know.
like that would help them find more markets when you have more abilities. You know, was when you're
Yeah.
starting to now talk about
Takes
the
more
only.
time too, though. Like there's a lot of testing. It just takes time.
yeah.
I've looked at that LPMS stuff. I cannot understand the C API that they're using. That's my problem. I don't understand that code, so I
Yeah,
can't
and the fun fact
even
is,
try to hack on it.
there is no one in the Livepeer team right now that speaks C anymore. Like all the people that left the team that spoke C. They're all Go writers now and JavaScript writers. And thankfully, the Mist team does know C,
Oh, so if I
so we
look
can
at it,
help
I
them.
should just message you on when I get extremely lost.
I can definitely help you
Looking
figure
at
out what it means. Yes.
I don't want to I don't want to like reinvent the wheel type thing. That's what you were referencing
Yeah.
earlier too. Not
The,
working
the
great
fun
one
thing
way.
is the
Let's just
inverse
make
is
the wheel
also true.
again.
Like the Mist team does not speak any Go at all, which is what the rest of Livepeer is written in. So we have this language barrier.
I'll write it my way. You write it your way. We'll see. We'll see how it does the same thing.
Yeah,
Well, and Zoop
exactly. And
wants to.
they have
Zoop
rewritten
keeps.
things we haven't seen. It's funny.
Yeah, and Zoop keeps threatening to rewrite the whole thing in Rust. So it'll be fun. Put 3 languages together and see what comes out.
I mean, Rust is fun. I would prefer Rust to Go.
I think I remember hearing they would if they could go back, they would have done it in Rust rather than Go. But just so happened the timing of the adoption of Go and everything else, they went with it.
Yeah, the more I get experience with programming over the years, and I can say this having done programming for almost 30 years now, that's it seems very much like a mood of the moment thing, what language people are liking that particular year, right?
Yeah, it is.
So I just want to clarify real quick, Yahom, just a couple things that you mentioned. So when it comes to like prioritizing features, you think that AV1 adoption would be very important, and then but this idea of a greater transcoding quality. When you say that, are you referring to something like a multi-pass transcoding workflow, or is there something else that makes something higher quality?
Yeah, there's more. Like there's an optimization step in encoders where they try to either get the most pixels per bit or they get the prettiest pixels per bit. And right now we're very much optimizing for most pixels per bit. So the most video for the least space and the fastest encoding. But you can actually spend more time and get a better quality of image within the same amount of bytes. But this takes more computing power. So right now everything just takes the shortcuts and makes it go as fast as possible, but not necessarily as efficiently as possible. And that makes sense, right? If you want to do real-time encoding, you want it to be fast. But the tricky thing is if you want to archive material, and this is a big thing that, for example, Netflix struggles with. They have, hundreds upon thousands upon millions potentially of hours of material that they need to keep archives in the best possible quality they can. So they want to spend extra time to make sure that the material looks really good but takes less space while looking good. And they're not as interested in it taking time. Like if it takes them 100 times as long as the playtime of a video to store it a little bit smaller than it would have taken otherwise, then they're happy to spend that time because they only spend that time once. And then they can deliver that to their customers thousands of times. And that's kind of the thing where I think Livepeer is missing the mark, where they continuously optimize for speed when you can also optimize for efficiency/quality.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, considering the delay in Livepeer's stack for live stuff, which I know it's in the name Livepeer, but it seems like to me also that VOD should be a little bit more of a focus for for all the reasons that Yarm was just explaining.
Yeah, and the coolest thing is even like you can use this technique where you spend more time to encode better, but spread the load of the transcode over multiple orchestrators or something like that, right? Do every couple seconds you switch to someone else. Then you can parallelize the encode. So you can do the high quality stuff, but you can still do it faster. And that's the kind of stuff they're currently not doing, but would be really interesting if they did. Because I don't think any other company in the world can handle that. I mean, they can't either right now, but I feel like they should.
Isn't there a problem though between encoders having different qualities of actual chips? So you'd have this like staggering quality between segments, or
Yeah, you'd need communication back. Like you should be able to figure out what encoding like level chip they have and send that back to.
Yeah,
So it
you
would
can
only go out to
technically
orchestrators that are
initialize an
running the
encoder
same
with
cards.
with specific parameters, and then they'll theoretically, come up with the same thing. But you're right that some chipsets do better at particular images than others. So depending on the exact contents of the video, you might see certain encoders do a better job than others, and that might even change per scene or even from second to second. So this is a tricky thing, especially because it's hard to measure, like objectively, which is better. You will often see even two humans disagree on which particular encoding looks better than another.
But even that, taking that into consideration, it would still make sense though, if you want to parallelize it, to know that okay, this is running a 6th gen encoders. At least parallelize the job across the same hardware, the same type of hardware, rather instead of like also mixing in a 5th gen with that, to get the same stream where it may be more noticeable that way.
Yeah, it might make
Or
sense to just say, okay, for this encode, we're just going to use only this particular piece of hardware over all the people that have it. And then that way they can parallelize without needing to worry about it looking worse and better from second to second.
very interesting. Yeah, I feel like that in itself would just be a large upgrade. Is just like having like the ability for the transcoders to report back what they have, and then there's actual logic in the broadcaster node to say, hey, like I want to parallelize this against the same generation cards, right? But again, it takes like a lot of work, and I'm not sure they have that much capital to put into that type of effort.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is that in order to make the encode efficient and consistent across multiple chipsets, you would have to actually export and import the information about the stream so far. So the best encoders, they look at the image that they have seen so far, like the video feed thus far and how it has moved and when things have gone a certain way, and they optimize the encoding based on what it has seen. So you kind of need to keep that history, so to speak. And it's not exactly the exact images, like they train parameters in the background, right? The same way you would train an AI network, except much, much simpler. And you would want to export these parameters and then import them on the next that is going to do the same job, and then export them again and import them again. And those kind of need to be passed along with the video. And right now they just get reinitialized every time. That's incidentally why you see that pulse effect through transcodes sometimes. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
the what effect?
There's this pulse effect that you see sometimes on a transcoded video on Livepeer, where every couple seconds there's this pulse of either a better or worse quality going through the image. And then it stabilizes again. That is the parameters getting retrained over and over.
Oh wow, interesting.
I feel like though live, it's in the actual word itself of the product, which is Livepeer, right? So live video. Do you think abstracting away VOD, like video on demand versus live, is in itself a monstrous task because you have different like you mentioned with Netflix, like they just want the absolute highest quality possible on their single video, whereas live video is just oftentimes a stream of someone's like fan or cat that's just like just hours of just somebody AFK at their keyboard, right? And so like do you think these are just two totally different markets in general, and that maybe Livepeer is well suited just to go after live video and stick with that one kind of task?
I would say it's not even that black and white. Like it's not live versus VOD because not every live user has the same priorities and not every VOD user has the same priorities. It's about particular encoding profiles or particular encoding targets is maybe a better name for it. And whether you're doing live or VOD is really not relevant. In fact, the Livepeer system doesn't even know or care whether your stream is live or VOD. Like the same things happen in the background. It's just a matter of what kind of encoding do you want. And right now there's only one kind Livepeer offers, and that is the fastest you can get me.
So what you're saying is there is no distinction between live or VOD. It's more just what settings do you want, and then you can let the
Exactly.
developers come up with what they would prefer based on their customer base, their product offering, and their logic around what they want to produce.
Yeah, like let's say that, for example, in the future, Netflix uses the Livepeer network for the encoding. They would want just some dial they can set to max quality, please, and that they don't care about how fast it happens. It's the same with the selection algorithm, right? Right now, orchestrators that encode faster are selected more often and keep jobs more better. But that really should not necessarily need to be the case. You can have cases where you want slower orchestrators that produce better quality.
Right, just like AV1 transcoding, it I believe it's quite slower.
Yeah.
If you were to use, I think I was looking at some benchmarking, and like the new 40 series cards can only do 4 streams of AV1, and they're completely
In real time.
yeah, they're completely taxed out. Whereas, you know, the other versions are, you know, you get 20 of these streams, right? So,
Yeah.
and so therefore that would cost four or 5 times as much. But you're saying that there's a market out there for people that want to pay for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the price difference between an H.264 and AV1 encode is like a factor 50 right now. And they're only like 5 times as hard to perform.
And for the end customer, I mean, if they're, for a VOD stream or for any stream, they're gonna, you factor in the delivery cost of that because you can get same or better quality at a smaller file size. So that's a big cost if you're delivering to a lot of people. That you're
Yeah,
you can make
exactly.
that money back on the, that you're paying, that you're putting up front for the encode, but you have to consider that every time that stream goes out, that there's a cost associated with that. So it's a big issue.
Yeah, if you do like an encode 10% smaller for the same quality just by spending a little bit more in the transcoding, now your delivery becomes 10% cheaper. So at a certain scale, it definitely becomes interesting to spend more time and more money on your transcoding than it does to spend it on delivery.
Right, of course. And you have these, and again, that is often only seen by the operator of who's building out the product.
Yeah.
Right,
Like
so
they don't communicate that stuff back. You just see them not using us anymore.
right, right. So Livepeer only has this one size fits all solution, but yet we don't know the growing pains of the customer, that they might want to dial things up or dial things down based on what they're seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Like
mean,
for let's say they have a big platform similar to Picarto, right? You might want to have cheap and fast encoding for the people that have hardly any viewers, but for the popular streamers, you might want to do a little bit more expensive encoding.
I mean, YouTube does that.
Exactly, they do exactly that. Yeah.
are you saying they're not using high quality transcoding on my 2-hour water cooler chats every
That's
week that I
correct.
upload?
I hate to break it to you, but I haven't actually looked, but I'm gonna guess that there's a good chance you're not getting the high quality.
I'm not
Yeah,
getting.
YouTube actually does AV1 encoding these days, but they only do it on the stuff that has like more than a few million views.
Right, and so it's a 50
And that
x.
saves them money, because that
Yeah.
saves them money. If they're going to be putting out that many streams of it, they're going to save it on the delivery cost.
Exactly, yeah. So we should get in on that game too.
What support do you need from Thul? It sounds like you've thought about this quite a bit, and your arguments do make sense. What do you need from us as a community? What could we do to light the fire to get some of these adoptions happening?
Yeah, it's tricky because the things that will get things moving the fastest is customers asking for this. And the tricky thing is if you're not offering a service, you don't get customers asking for the thing you don't have, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not sure what we can do from the let's call it the production side of things, right? Where the encoding actually happens. Sure, we can say, oh, we want to offer this thing to customers, but because they don't have the customers that are asking for it because they go elsewhere, they think there's no demand. This is kind of like a chicken and egg problem. And I feel like we should just create the offering and demand will follow.
From my understanding, Miss Server is probably the largest contributor of Livepeer customers. So that would put you as the most interactive with customers that want these type of uh, services. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I perceive it. So have you been asked for AV1 and higher quality and more dials to switch around?
Yeah, definitely. And we added a whole bunch of AV1 features to Mist just in the last half year alone. We can do AV1 over MP4 these days, for example, and over WebRTC even. But yeah, Livepeer doesn't use those features because they believe there is no demand. Other customers do. But they usually don't use Livepeer because they make their own transcoding stacks and stuff like that, right? So,
Right. They go
yeah.
rent their own servers or go deploy their own hardware and then just run the streams through there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever talk to them about the difficulty they have with that, or are they just not using Livepeer simply because they don't have enough of the features they're looking for?
Well, the main reason they generally don't use Livepeer is not because Livepeer doesn't do what they want or because it's too expensive or anything like that. It's simply they got into this business before Livepeer existed. They've been doing this for years. They're good at it. They don't want to go anywhere else with this.
Right. Right. They're already hooked into their own ways. And so
Yeah, like they have it all set up. Why would they bother?
right. Yeah, of
So
course.
Livepeer can really win in the up and coming places, like the new platforms that launch, those kind of things. That's where they can get their hooks in on the customers and keep them latched on for life. Because once you build something dependent on Livepeer, you're not gonna just swap away.
Right. I had a friend explain this to me. He had dealt with he's actually an orchestrator, Mahmood. He dealt with video, Amazon Prime Video. He's one of their head engineers, and he basically explained, the adoption curve of infrastructure of these types of things are typically very slow, and you don't get people rushing over like bull market meme coins to jump on board. Right? They're very slow to adopt, and it takes lots of time. Do you think Livepeer is doing the right actions to grow over that time, or like you said, are they too deficient in the product offering that they're not, people are still looking elsewhere?
I think they are taking the right steps, not necessarily in the right order or at the right speed, but they are doing the right things. They're just kind of building up a whole bunch of code depth, so to speak, where they know that certain things need to happen, but they're not focusing on those right now and thinking, oh, when we get lots of success later, we'll spend time on those. But the more of that you build up, the harder it becomes to catch up to it again. So I've kind of been sneakily putting things in Mist that I know they will need 2-3 years from now. Getting ready for them to ask and then me being able to go like, here you go, we had it all along.
Ah, yes, yeah, home, the biggest asset to future thinking. I like it.
Well, it's a great tactic actually. I've done this with most of our customers where I'm like, okay, I can see where these guys are going in a couple of years. They don't see it yet, but I know they're gonna need this and they're gonna need that. So let's make sure we have it ready before they ask. And that is a great way to get customers to never go away.
Yeah, I would highly agree.
Speaking of future stuff, didn't we originally, when we were talking, was it last week about getting Yaron on about was it about the Quick protocol? Was it or is that, am I just like totally mixing thoughts up?
It's certainly
Like what?
possible.
Because wasn't there at one point a at least a prototype or something of Livepeer using Quick, and I forgot even what the advantage
There
of it
is,
was, but I
yeah,
know
that
someone
was
brought it
actually
up.
part of the work we did for Nissan.
Oh, okay. So can you just tell us a little bit about that? Like just what's the advantage of Quick, and why would we want to use that?
So what they wanted to do, and I'll have to speak mostly generically here, but they wanted to stream video footage from a moving vehicle over a cell phone connection with less than half a second latency to a couple kilometers away. And that was tricky because with cell phone connections on moving vehicles, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but like your bandwidth is not consistent at all. You can have trickle speeds 1 second and multiple megabits the next second. Not because the image is changing, which is also a thing, but because you're moving from particular coverage areas to other coverage areas, and you may just not be able to get certain speeds in certain areas. That can change very quickly if you're in a car because they move fast. So what they needed to do is have something that could handle low latency and highly changing environments. And the only protocol right now that really does that is Quick, which has been optimized for this for years and years by Google because they needed something to use on their Android phones that would not lose connection in these conditions. They wanted people to be able to sit in trains, in buses, and be able to be on their phone and not get disconnected. So this is exactly optimized for that use case. And Nissan actually encouraged us and was like, hey, look into Quick, see if you can make that work. And we did some prototyping with this, and we're going to get proper integrations funded by them actually in soon. That make video streaming over Quick actually possible, and it's looking very good from initial views on it. But for other cases, like regular internet connections that are stable and just normal desktop bandwidth connections, those that are not that interesting.
So
for
it's
this protocol.
so for mobile it would be advantageous, but not so
Yeah,
much
big
for
win.
right. Got it.
I would say it's the difference between making it impossible and possible to do a broadcast from a cell phone while moving around.
It runs over UDP instead of TCP.
Yeah, exactly. And not just that, but it has like great ways of dealing with differences in conditions.
So I have some sales and marketing questions directed at you. I'm not sure how much insight. I just want to know your opinion on Livepeer Inc.'s attempts at sort of acquiring new customers, broadcasters essentially. What can you
Well,
tell
I
us about
know
that?
that they have been relatively successful because I see the messages whenever they get new customers. But they're also going after a particular type of customer that I'm not sure if the best target for them. It is from a marketing perspective, but not necessarily from a stability perspective. So I don't know. But I'm also not well versed in that market, so I can't really be sure if my hunch that this might not be the best direction is correct or not.
Are you referring to like the Web3 market?
Yeah. Like there's a few big upcoming things that they are spending a lot of time in trying to make sure they use Livepeer. And they're quite successful at that. But like with these up and coming things, I always feel like sure they look like they're gonna be big next year now, but someone else might be the big one next year.
Right. It's this
Right.
fast-moving kind of crypto market bull and bust cycle of developers as well. That like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. But don't you think, like, going back to the conversation though about infrastructure taking a long time to build, and if you're happy, you're not going to switch providers. Like, wouldn't that
Mhm.
then be the correct market for a new emerging, you know, service
Yes.
provider to come along, is to focus on the boom and bust of just like, we got to get people as they're looking and as they're starting, because moving
Yes.
over old customers off of their current infrastructure is almost impossible.
Yeah. That's what I meant with, like, from a marketing perspective, it makes sense because these are the easier sales, right? They're more likely to say yes, they're more likely to stay customers. But they're also the more risky ones because they're more likely to not exist next year. That's kind of the trade-off there.
Right. I believe. Sorry, Avi, if you have any more questions or want to expand on that.
I did actually. And so this new entity that Mist Server has been fleshed out into, is there any sort of sales incentives for getting customers for Livepeer, or getting customers to use Livepeer if they could be converted?
Right now there isn't, but I'm pretty sure that if we suddenly start sending a lot of customers their way, they would probably make us some incentive. Like, I'm not worried about that. I trust that if we scratch their back, they will scratch ours in return. But it's quite tricky to convince people to switch transcoding provider. Like, if they ask, hey, do you know a good one? We usually recommend Livepeer. But that's not a question we get asked often.
Got it.
So a conversation we had prior to you coming on your home was, there was this idea of we can set our price per pixel at 0 for the public network, and then keep our prices for Livepeer Inc. At the steady rate is what we're at. And this idea would be to provide free transcoding until we get adoption and people can kind of onboard easier. And that could be something we could provide as collectively as a community, or whatever we like. How price sensitive are people when they come to looking at like transcoding services? Are they very price conscious? Would a decrease in price, or at least elimination of price for a trial period be interesting for these type of customers that are existing?
It's tricky. I think for H.264 you will see hardly any extra adoption, even if you make the price 0. But if you go for the interesting new codecs, then it very much matters. And that is mostly because for the things that are easy to get, like the H.264 is, people care more about stability than they care about price. And getting something for free, you're never going to trust it's stable.
Right. So free doesn't relate to, hey, this is exactly what I want. Free relates to, hey, I'm a little nervous about like how well this will even work.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to attract people that are like, well, as long as this works, I'll use it. But, if it doesn't, I have a backup ready. And you don't want people to have to think about having a backup ready.
Right.
You want them to trust you to do the job.
You want to set your price, be firm in your price, and they know whenever you come to you've got them handled, no questions asked.
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
That's a much better look.
That's
I can't stick around for much longer, by the way, so we should wrap it up.
Yeah, well, we're actually only have 9 minutes left until we're completely wrapped up, and we do have another topic to go through. So, what I'll do is I'll actually end it there for the Q&A session for Thul. Thanks for
Sounds good.
jumping in, and I did ask you in a DM, and I'm glad you just were able to carve out some time to come talk.
Yeah, sorry for not communicating much, but I'm here.
Oh, that's okay. No, we just appreciate you coming, and as you can see, without any preparation, we still have 40-50 minutes of questions for you. So
easily, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you guys later then.
Do appreciate your time. Thanks for coming.
Bye, all.
Cool. One last topic I wanted to go through was Fort Koonsman just put a little note here before we wrap up. I have a community node announcement. Joey, you want to take it away?
Sure. I just wanted to let everybody know that the time has come. I am shutting down at least the public service this week. Okay, and there's still people using it, so I would suggest, changing over if you are still using it. That said, the pay for use service is also going to be up and running this week. So if anybody does want to continue, having an Arbitrum source other than one of the big providers, we're starting out at a base price of $25 a month with no limits to start. We're still working that out, but the goal is to be low cost provider, provide a ton of requests. Like you're not going to get rate limited. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Very cool. Go ahead, Papa.
Oh, no, sorry, I was just breathing. I'm sorry.
Oh, breathing. All right, no worries. Could you post a link, Joey, to the to where we could sign up for a paid subscription and more details about the product offering?
Yeah. So I will tell you right now, don't have any of that functionality built out yet. If anybody needs, an RPC endpoint and wants to continue using it, we can manually set you up on a monthly recurring thing through Stripe. The actual user interface and website and everything is still all being built out, but the service will still be functional. It's just not there's no like good user experience built yet.
When you say we, are you teamed up with someone on this effort?
I am. Yeah. So Mike Zuper and I are spearheading this together. I know he already has people using his RPC node, a couple of them. Obviously, the community node members are using mine, so we're working right now to basically join efforts and have one service. And yeah, it will be available for anybody to use.
Very cool. Do you accept only Stripe payments via credit card, or you do accept crypto for payments?
Right now, we only accept credit card, but we will be working on integrating crypto payment as well, because I'm sure many users would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd highly recommend. I don't know if you've heard of request.finance. They're like Stripe for crypto. It's pretty slick. Might be
cool.
worth looking into. You just
Absolutely.
like set the currency, set the chain, and it generates an invoice, and you just like you send it off. It's all got a big interface, beautiful, and you can do recurring payments and all these types of things. So I'd highly recommend request.finance.
I will check that.
I've used it for somebody else, and yeah, it was a pretty good experience. So I would just check it out if you want to try out like just a out of the box, try it out. Just go to their webpage. Cool, right on. I do appreciate that, and I think from the rest of the community, I would say thank you so much for all your efforts for the community node over the past year. I think it's been over 12 months that you've been running it for the community. So it's been really useful and for getting us onboarded and getting a reliable RPC out there. So we do appreciate you putting in that service for free for all this time through the community grant and everything else. So we're happy to see you grow into something that's maybe a more full-fledged tier service and see where it goes. So pretty excited for that.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Do we have any other topics before we sign off?
Vary's brought up the Delta proposal, I believe.
Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, boy. 4 minutes left. Hey, Varies. Do you want to give us your take on the 10% cut and the 750 LPT? And then we'll kind of gather a quick feedback before we sign off.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the initial values that are proposed by Bedog is 10% and yeah, 750k LPT as treasure limit. Honestly, I'm not quite sure where I stand, especially on the limit. If you just look at it from like a dollar point of view, that would be at current prices like $5.5 million, which is quite high in my opinion for like an initial experiment. It would also take at current inflation levels like 2 years to fill up. So there's that. And I mean, I guess if you look at it from a percentage of the total supply, it would be 2.5% approximately. If you look at it from that angle, that's kind of okay, I guess. And also, if you would say that maybe we can commit like 1 million to the Uniswap pool, or maybe like back to the topic we had before, like subsidize AV1 encoding, so we can have cheaper prices on that, but we take some LPT from the grants or from the Delta proposal to subsidize orchestrators for that. If we do stuff like that, it would be okay again. But yeah, not sure. Curious what you think about this.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the initial amount is just kind of a shot in the dark anyway. I don't think any amount is going to be easy enough to figure out, but yeah, I'm happy with it, but that's because with another LIP vote, we can easily change it, and so I'm more interested to see Delta get off the ground with an audit that comes back saying that the protocol is safe, that we get consensus around this is actually an idea that we want to do. And then as for the amounts, yeah, like if in 3 months we see that this is just way too much going into the treasury, we can do another vote to change that. And I don't believe that vote would take very long to do and or implement. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like projecting, like what's the thing about pro formas with companies? Any financial projection is always 100% wrong. So you're just going based off of degrees of error. So just start with what we got and adjust accordingly is kind of my thoughts. So this is just my 2 cents.
Can someone explain this 750K cap? So if the treasury spends some this month, 10% will be taken from all O's winnings to fill up the treasury. Is that how this works?
It'll be if this passes, the 10% comes off of orchestrator, or comes out of the orchestrator. Sorry, rewards until the treasury is filled. So as soon as it's passed, then your rewards.
Let's assume it gets filled in X number of months or years. After that, how does it work? So every time it drops, 10% is cut from all O's earnings till it's back up to 750. Is that how it works? Like it'll keep trying to go up till it hits 750 essentially. Is my understanding correct?
That's the way I understand it, unless anyone has something different to say. Yeah, that's my understanding too.
Cool. Yeah, so basically, yeah, 10% gets cut off of everyone's reward cut until the 750 cap is hit, and then it stops. And that's that. So, yeah, every orchestrator and delegator is taking a 10% cut as soon as the Delta proposal goes through, or until we vote to change the percentage cut.
Sort of term set, how long will that take?
I don't know the exact calculation. Barry's, do you know how long it'll take to hit the cap?
Yeah, so currently we're minting, I think, around 9.2k LPT per month, so per round. So that 10% would be 920, and if you divide that by the 750k, I think you end up at like 24 months that it would take in total to fill up the 750K.
2 years, roughly. And that's so if the Livepeer,
That's if none's spent.
and that's none if none is
Like,
spent. So like
right.
the Livepeer Innovators DAO is going to apply for an X amount that will, hopefully get distributed. So it could be continuously that the 10% goes in if it keeps getting spent.
I would think most likely it is, because else that means that the concept behind it kind of fails, right?
Which
I
is
mean,
why
it's-
we
the-
have
the-
the cap, which is, yeah.
Right. What that's my I guess. I guess it's safe to assume though that it's forever ongoing unless it doesn't work.
Yeah. Does anyone else have an opinion on the 10%, 750K?
I agree with Varus. I think it's high.
I mean, it depends what you will do with it, right? If, as I said, you take like a large sum to make the Uniswap pool have better liquidity there so that people can swap to ETH on Arbitrum without taking a price cut, it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's not like, I don't think it's per se too high. It's just, if you look at it from an experiment point of view, it's pretty high to have just like a $5 million experiment, right? But as Titan said, it's easy to change that. I mean, if we see no funds requested for like 6 months, we can just start a vote and say, hey, doesn't seem to work. Let's just cap it at what it is currently and see if we even gonna use that. What we have.
Yeah, like the parameter change is pretty easy. It's literally 2 parameters, and you can vote through it in a week, and we could totally shut down the whole thing in like a day or a week if we just vote to 0 and hey, this experiment didn't go along. I do believe that there's this idea that we're like marrying this concept, but we're not. We're literally. The bulk of the proposal is the logic behind the protocol itself, which needs to be correct. But once it's in place, you can revert it back to 0, and we're back to where we started, at net no actual like harm, right?
I think what I meant to say was, I think the since this is an experiment, I think we're starting with figures that are too high. Like you said, we can always tweak them later. I would prefer it if we started at lower figures for both the cut and the cap. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, and just to fill you in, Avi, originally it was 15% and was lowered to 10% based on orchestrators feeling it was too high. So it has been dropped, but I think that there's still some orchestrators that feel that 10%
So
is
wouldn't the
still pretty stupid.
conversations, arguments were made for this?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. I couldn't understand what you said.
Is this on the Livepeer forum? These conversations
also-
around.
There's an entire water cooler chat about this with the DOB, so I'd recommend if you do want to get caught up on the voice conversation. I think it's 2 water coolers ago. It was with DOB, and right out of the gate, we talk about it for like an hour, so there won't be much wait. If you want to spend an hour just listening, I think that would be a good place to get you caught up on the whole conversation.
Cool.
But at that being said, though, we're 5 minutes past the hour. I have to go, and I think we've been at this for 2 hours, so we'll let this conversation continue into next week, because I believe the Delta proposal isn't going through that soon. I don't know when the actual vote is, but and we'll also continue this conversation obviously in Discord and the Livepeer forum. So keep up the good conversation, and excited for the outcome. That being said, thank you all so much for being here in this week's Water Cooler Chat. It was very exciting, and nice to have a little drop in from Yahom and some updates around what he's doing. So very cool to see that. Thank you all for being a part of building the world's open infrastructure for video. We will see you all next week. Cheers.
Everyone.